Well, we're celebrating 40 years of women at Downing. Of course, when I came up to Downing, it was a long time before that. It was an all-male college, and I never thought of it as anything else. In fact, what I'd just done was 2 years military service. And so it was really just more all-male society, only now you could wear corduroy trousers and read books, which you haven't been able to do before. And in fact, I did have women friends, but they were from the tutorial groups. We sat at the feet of Dr. Leavis, and women came to those tutorials, and in fact I made friends with them, and they've been friends for most of my life pretty well. But in fact, curiously enough, I got into a mixed society, not at Downing at all. I didn't have to wait for that, because once I'd finished my university studies, I thought it was time for me to set about trying to be what I wanted to be, which was an artist. And I did become one, and that's how I'm here, because I'm in a position to draw pictures of the women of Downing. I went off to Chelsea Art School as a student, and I went to the RCA as a tutor, and that was a perfectly mixed society. And as I say, that put me in the position of being able to provide the materials for this exhibition, which I'm so pleased to have in the Hyong Gallery. Now there are three elements in it. There are the 40 women, and that was fascinating to me, because I had to try and invent different varieties of character, variations of character, not dramatic variations, but because that's a especially interesting task, because a lot of what I do is illustration, book illustration, in which I have to try and imagine what characters look like that authors are describing. Whereas here I had to make them up for myself. As I say, I didn't want to make them dramatically different, but it was nice to be able to find 40 different people. And I'll say in brackets also, it had a striking effect. One never knows quite where anything is going to lead. And I did these 40 pictures, and I thought it was so interesting to do that once they had been shown in the Hyong Gallery, I started doing more, I'm afraid, and in different techniques with slightly more different characters, different media, different ways of doing it, and I got rather taken with the habit. So I confess, I've worked out how many drawings there are, and there are at least 1,000. So one of the things I hope for is perhaps some of those will come into the Hyong Gallery one day. Nobody need feel committed, but there is lots of stuff there if you ever feel that you'd like to show some of it. Now there are some other elements in the show. Another one is, the second one is Matilda. Matilda at 30. I think it was felt it would be nice if we had someone that people knew that wasn't directly connected with the college. But it was quite interesting to me because 2 or 3 years ago, the people at Penguin Books who publish Roald Dahl's Matilda realised it was 30 years since it was published. So they said, Matilda must be 30. And they asked me if I could imagine what she might be doing when she was 30. So I did a set of drawings, I have 6 or 7 drawings, and I brought things on from what she was doing. She had a number of, she was a striking child. Incidentally, when I drew her face, first of all, I was deciding what she looked like. She actually doesn't look like a 4 or 5 year old child. She looks like somebody older. And she had these many gifts and talents, and so I used some of those. I mean, she managed to in a rather obvious sort of way, she managed to dye her father's hair. So I decided she could be a hairdresser, you know. So, but more seriously, she also, because she was good at figures, she becomes an astrophysicist or something like that. Because she was able to make up a limerick on the spur of the moment, she becomes the poet laureate. And nowadays we do have women poet laureates. It meant that when she grew up and became these things, as I imagined them, in a sense they became more real, because in the context of us here in Downing, we do have those people. Women have become all these various things, and I just mentioned a few of them. You don't have to take notice of they're all in wrestling, by the way, although people do that. But I mean, the serious tasks which women are pursuing are reflected there. So that I'm pleased that is in there, because the Matilda at 30 is something much more like women today. The other element is something I call wayward locks. And it may not be clear what that has got to do with it. I mean, I did it first of all because I wanted to draw somebody decorative. But some of there's a lot of hair, and some of it blows in the wind, and some of it has got books mixed up in it. But mainly what it is one can say decorative. What is interesting to me about it, however, is the hair becomes extraordinary, but it isn't, I hope you'll believe it isn't hairdressing. My feeling is that the hair has done that itself. And so, in a sense, for me, that is, in a way, even more important than the other aspects of the young women I've talked about, because to me it's their imagination. Nobody dressed that hair to make it look like that. It came like that. And it's a sort of expression of the imagination which is going on. And that imagination is tremendously important. Well, illustration it's always been tremendously interesting to me. As I said, I came to Downing and I read English, which wasn't supposed to be anything to do with being an artist. But in fact, when I became an artist, my time at Downing was extremely useful to me, because I do read the words as well, and it's that interplay of words and pictures that is so fascinating to me, and also the dimension of, as it were, of acting. So that is what makes the whole business of people coming together to talk and work together especially fascinating. And it's not only fascinating, it's very important in itself, I think. I've just done an exhibition which is called We Live in Worrying Times. In fact, I set about it before we found we were living in worrying times. But times like this, it may be in lockdown, it may be in some kind of threat, it may be in some kind of dilemma, some kind of human distress. Art is very important. Drawing, for me, it's drawing. And the extraordinary thing about it is that we need it because it's got life in it. That's the important thing for me about drawing. You may be drawing very distressing things, as I was for this show called We Live in Worrying Times. I mean, people who are refugees, who are homeless, who are distressed in various ways. But it's not, at least what I hope is, it's not entirely distressing, because the way you present it, the way that it's drawn, the way you live it, has got something enhancing in it, so that no matter how grisly it is, the fact that there is drawing in it means you're embracing it, you're moving forward, you're doing something with it. And that's something is very fascinating, I think. For me, it's drawing, but it's true of all the arts, and it's why we need them.